The emergency beacon had been silent for 47 years. When it suddenly blazed back to life, every sensor station across the Centauri Federation lit up like a holiday celebration. The signal came from Kepler 442b, a world that humanity had tried to colonize nearly half a century ago. The colony had failed. Everyone knew that. The ships had stopped responding, the communications had gone dark, and the Federation had written off the 12,000 colonists as victims of the harsh alien world. But now the beacon was active again. Commander Elena Vasquez stood in the briefing room of the Federation Council, her hands clasped behind her back as she studied the holographic display. At 29 years old, she was the youngest fleet commander in Federation history. Many of the older admirals had questioned her appointment, but she had earned her rank through skill and determination, not through family connections or political games. "The signal is definitely human in origin," said Chief Science Officer Marcus Webb, his fingers dancing over the control panel. "Same encryption protocols we used back in 2147. Someone down there managed to keep the old equipment running." Admiral Chen, a gray-haired man with deep lines etched into his face, shook his head slowly. "This has to be a trap. The Vexari control that sector now. They could have captured the beacon and modified it to lure our ships into an ambush." Elena had considered that possibility. The Vexari were a reptilian species that had expanded aggressively into human space over the past 3 decades. They were cunning, patient, and utterly ruthless. But something about this situation felt different to her. "If it were a Vexari trap, they would have made the signal stronger," Elena said. "They would want to ensure we detected it. This beacon is barely functional. Someone is trying to reach us with limited resources." "Commander Vasquez makes a valid point," said Councilwoman Akafer, the civilian representative on the military council. "But even if there are survivors down there, what can we do about it? Kepler 442b is deep in contested space. Any rescue mission would require a significant military presence." Elena stepped forward, her boots clicking on the polished floor. "I am not proposing a full military invasion. I am proposing a surgical operation. One ship, minimal crew, moving fast and quiet. We slip in, assess the situation, and extract any survivors." Admiral Chen laughed, but there was no humor in the sound. "You want to take a single ship into Vexari territory. That is suicide, Commander." "With respect, Admiral, I have navigated through Vexari patrols before. My record speaks for itself." Elena met his gaze without flinching. "Those are human beings down there, our people. We do not abandon our own." The council chamber fell into a tense silence. Elena knew that most of the admirals thought she was too young, too inexperienced, too reckless. But she also knew that every person in this room remembered the tragedy of Kepler 442b. The loss of that colony had been a wound that never fully healed. 12,000 people, including children and families, had simply vanished into the void. Councilwoman Akafer cleared her throat. "I move that we authorize Commander Vasquez's proposed mission. She will take her ship, the Prometheus, and investigate the beacon. If survivors are found, she is authorized to negotiate their extraction by whatever means necessary." The vote was close, but it passed. Elena allowed herself a small smile as she left the council chamber. She had 48 hours to prepare her ship and crew for the most dangerous mission of her career. The Prometheus was a corvette-class vessel, small and fast, designed for scouting and rapid response operations. Elena had commanded her for 3 years, and she knew every bolt and wire of the ship like she knew her own body. The crew of 60 had been with her through countless missions, and she trusted them completely. Lieutenant Commander James Park was her second in command, a calm and methodical man who balanced out Elena's more impulsive tendencies. Dr. Yuki Tanaka ran the medical bay with an iron fist and a gentle heart. Chief Engineer Rodriguez could fix anything with enough time and creativity. These were her people, her family in all the ways that mattered. Alina gathered them in the main briefing room as the Prometheus prepared to leave Federation space. She explained the mission, the risks, and the unknowns. She did not sugarcoat anything. "We do not know what we will find when we reach Kepler 442b, she said. "The colonists may all be dead. The beacon could be a Vexari trap. We might be flying into a situation that we cannot handle. But I believe that there are people down there who need our help. I believe that they have been waiting for rescue for 47 years. And I believe that we have a duty to answer their call." Lieutenant Park nodded slowly. "What is the plan if we encounter Vexari forces?" "We run," Alina said simply. "The Prometheus is faster than anything in the Vexari fleet. Our job is not to fight. Our job is to find out what happened to that colony and bring our people home." The journey to Kepler 442b took 9 days at maximum speed. Alina spent most of that time studying everything the Federation knew about the original colony mission. The colonists had been pioneers, volunteers who had agreed to settle a distant world and establish humanity's first permanent presence outside the solar system. They had been farmers, scientists, teachers, and engineers. They had brought their hopes and dreams to an alien world, and then they had simply disappeared. The official Federation report stated that the colony had failed due to unforeseen environmental challenges, but Alina had read the last transmissions from the colony, and she suspected that there was more to the story. The colonists had mentioned conflicts with the native life forms. They had described strange phenomena that their scientists could not explain. And then, one day, the transmissions had simply stopped. As the Prometheus approached the Kepler system, Alina ordered the ship to silent running. They would enter the system without broadcasting their presence, using passive sensors only, and approach the planet from an angle that would minimize their chances of detection. The first thing Alina noticed was that the Vexari were not present in the system. Their long-range sensors showed no sign of alien ships or installations. The system appeared to be completely empty except for the planet itself and its 3 small moons. "That is strange," Lieutenant Park said, studying the sensor data. "The Vexari claimed this system 15 years ago. Why would they abandon it?" Alina did not have an answer. She ordered the ship to proceed with caution as they approached Kepler 442b. The planet was a super-Earth, larger and more massive than humanity's homeworld, with a thick atmosphere and vast oceans. The original colonists had established their settlement on one of the larger continents, near a river delta that provided fresh water and fertile land. As the Prometheus entered orbit, Dr. Tanaka called Alina to the sensor station. "Commander, you need to see this." Alina looked at the display and felt her breath catch in her throat. Where she had expected to see the ruins of a failed colony, she instead saw lights, thousands of them. A sprawling city covered the river delta, with roads and structures extending in every direction. The original colony had not failed. It had grown. "How is this possible?" Alina whispered. The beacon signal was coming from the center of the city. Someone down there was still trying to reach the stars. And after 47 years of silence, Alina was determined to answer their call. She ordered the Prometheus to begin descent procedures. Whatever secrets Kepler 442b held, she was about to uncover them. The Prometheus touched down on the outskirts of the city just as the local sun began to set. Alina had chosen a landing site that offered some cover from observation, a wide clearing surrounded by dense alien forest. The trees were not like anything she had seen before, with spiraling trunks and leaves that seemed to glow faintly in the fading light. Alina led the first away team personally, despite Lieutenant Park's objections. She brought 6 soldiers for security, Dr. Tanaka for medical assessment, and Chief Engineer Rodriguez in case they needed technical expertise. They were armed but not aggressive, their weapons set to stun rather than kill. The city was closer than it had appeared from orbit, only about 2 kilometers from the landing site. They moved through the forest carefully, alert for any sign of danger. The alien plants rustled in a gentle breeze, and strange sounds echoed through the trees. Once, Alina caught a glimpse of something moving in the shadows, but it disappeared before she could get a clear look. As they approached the city's edge, they began to see signs of human habitation. Paths cut through the forest, marked with symbols that Alina recognized as a modified version of Standard English. Simple structures made from local materials dotted the landscape, some of them clearly homes and others serving purposes that Alina could not immediately identify. And then they encountered the first inhabitants. A group of children burst from the trees ahead of them, laughing and chasing each other through the gathering dusk. They stopped short when they saw Alina and her team, their eyes going wide with surprise. Alina raised her hand in a gesture of peace and spoke slowly and clearly. "Hello, we are from the Federation. We received your beacon signal. We have come to help." The children stared at her for a long moment. Then the oldest among them, a girl of perhaps 12 years, turned and ran back toward the city, shouting words in a language that Alina did not recognize. The other children followed, leaving the away team alone on the path. "That went well," Dr. Tanaka said dryly. Alina smiled despite herself. "At least they did not attack us. That is something." They continued toward the city, following the path that the children had taken. More people appeared as they walked, emerging from homes and workshops to watch the strangers pass. Alina saw faces that were clearly human but also something more. These people were taller than average, their skin tanned from exposure to the alien sun, their eyes bright with curiosity and caution in equal measure. No one tried to stop them. No one spoke to them. They simply watched, waiting to see what the strangers would do. The beacon signal led them to a large structure in the center of the city, a building that was obviously older than most of the others. It had been constructed from materials brought from Earth, metals and plastics that looked out of place among the organic architecture of the surrounding structures. This was the original colony headquarters, Alina realized, the heart of the settlement that humanity had built nearly 50 years ago. A man stood waiting for them at the entrance. He was old, perhaps 80 or 90 years old by Alina's estimate, with white hair and deeply weathered skin. But his eyes were sharp and alert, and he carried himself with the dignity of someone who was accustomed to authority. "I am Marcus Foster," he said, his voice carrying the faint accent of someone who had learned Standard English as a child and then spent decades speaking a different language. "I am the one who activated the beacon. I did not expect you to come so quickly." Alina stepped forward and extended her hand. "Commander Alina Vasquez, Federation ship Prometheus. We came as soon as we detected your signal. Can you tell us what happened here? We thought the colony had failed." Marcus Foster took her hand and shook it firmly. A smile spread across his weathered face, transforming his features and making him look years younger. "Failed?" he said. "No, Commander, the colony did not fail, it evolved." He gestured for them to follow him inside, and Alina caught her first glimpse of the story that she had traveled so far to discover. The interior of the building was filled with artifacts from the original colony mission, preserved like treasures in a museum. But among them were newer items, technologies that Alina did not recognize, devices that seemed to blend human engineering with something distinctly alien. "It is a long story," Marcus Foster said, leading them deeper into the building. "But I think you will find it worth hearing. The Federation needs to know what we have learned here. They need to understand what humanity is capable of when we stop fighting and start cooperating." Alina nodded, her curiosity burning bright. She had come to rescue survivors from a failed colony. Instead, she had discovered something far more remarkable. She had discovered a new chapter in human history. Marcus Foster led them to a large room that had clearly served as a council chamber for many years. The walls were covered with maps and charts, some showing the planet's geography and others depicting complex diagrams that Alina could not immediately understand. A long table dominated the center of the room, worn smooth by decades of use. "Please sit," Marcus said, gesturing to the chairs around the table. "This will take some time to explain properly." Alina took a seat, her team arranging themselves around her. The old man settled into a chair at the head of the table, moving slowly but deliberately. He closed his eyes for a moment, gathering his thoughts, and then began to speak. "When the colony ships first arrived at Kepler 442b, we thought we were alone. The planet showed no signs of intelligent life from orbit. The surveys indicated that the ecosystem was complex but not technological. We were wrong." He paused, letting that statement hang in the air. "The native species of this world are not what we expected. They do not build cities or machines. They do not use tools in the way that we understand them, but they are intelligent. They are far more intelligent than we initially realized." Dr. Tanaka leaned forward, her scientific curiosity evident. "What kind of species are we talking about? The Federation records did not mention any significant native life." Marcus smiled sadly. "That is because we did not report what we found. By the time we truly understood the situation, we had already decided to stop communicating with Earth." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small device, something that looked like a modified communicator. He activated it, and a holographic image appeared above the table. Alina saw a creature unlike anything she had encountered before. It was large, perhaps 3 meters tall when fully extended, with a body that seemed to flow and shift like liquid. Multiple limbs extended from its central mass, each one ending in delicate appendages that resembled fingers. Its surface was covered with what appeared to be bioluminescent patterns, colors rippling across its body in complex sequences. "We call them the Keepers," Marcus said. "They have lived on this world for millions of years. They are not aggressive by nature. They are curious, thoughtful, and incredibly patient. When we arrived and began building our colony, they watched us. They studied us. And eventually, they made contact." Alina studied the holographic image with fascination. How did they communicate? Did they develop technology to interface with humans? "No," Marcus said. "They did not need technology. The Keepers are natural telepaths. They can share thoughts and memories directly from mind to mind. When they first reached out to us, many colonists were frightened. Some people thought it was an attack. The early days were difficult." He paused, his expression growing distant as he remembered those long-ago events. There were factions among the colonists who wanted to fight. They believed that the Keepers were a threat that needed to be eliminated. Others wanted to flee, to abandon the colony and return to Earth. The conflict nearly tore our community apart. Alina nodded slowly. She could imagine the chaos and fear that must have gripped the colony when they discovered they were not alone. "What changed?" she asked. Marcus smiled, and this time the expression reached his eyes. "A young man changed everything. His name was Thomas Chen, and he was only 19 years old when the contact happened. He was the son of 2 scientists, raised among people who valued curiosity over fear. When the Keepers first reached out, he did not run. He listened." The holographic image shifted, showing scenes from the early colony days. Alina saw humans and Keepers meeting in open fields, their forms silhouetted against the alien sky. She saw what appeared to be a young man standing before a crowd of colonists, his hands raised in a gesture of calm. "Thomas discovered something remarkable," Marcus continued. "The Keepers were not just intelligent. They were deeply connected to the planet itself. They had spent millions of years learning to live in harmony with their world. They had knowledge that could help us survive here, but more than that, they were lonely." "Lonely?" Lieutenant Park asked, speaking for the first time. "Yes, the Keepers are social beings. They exist as part of a collective consciousness, sharing thoughts and experiences across their entire species. But they had never encountered another intelligent species before. When we arrived, they were eager to learn about us. They wanted to understand who we were and where we came from. Thomas realized that we had something to offer them, and they had something to offer us. Marcus deactivated the holographic display and folded his hands on the table. Thomas proposed a partnership. The keepers would share their knowledge of the planet, teaching us how to grow food, build shelter, and coexist with the native ecosystem. In exchange, we would share our own knowledge and experiences. We would become part of their collective, not as subjects or servants, but as equal partners. Alina felt a chill run down her spine. You merged with an alien collective consciousness. Not merged, Marcus said firmly. Partnered. The keepers do not absorb other minds. They share and exchange. Every human who joins the collective remains an individual with their own thoughts and memories and identity. But they also gain access to the accumulated wisdom of millions of years. They can communicate with the keepers directly, mind to mind, without the need for technology or translation. He gestured to the city, beyond the walls of the building. What you see outside is the result of that partnership. For 47 years, we have built something new here. We have created a society that combines the best of human ambition with the deep understanding of the keepers. We have learned to live on this world without destroying it, and we have grown. Alina was silent for a long moment, processing everything she had heard. This was far more significant than a simple rescue mission. This was first contact on a scale that the Federation had never imagined. Why did you stop communicating with Earth? She asked finally. Marcus sighed heavily. Because we knew what would happen if we told them. The Federation would have sent ships and soldiers. They would have tried to study the keepers, to understand them, to control them. And the partnership would have been destroyed before it truly began. He met Alina's eyes, his gaze steady and unafraid. We made a choice, Commander. We chose to protect what we were building here. We chose isolation over interference. But now, after all these years, we believe it is time to reconnect with the rest of humanity. The galaxy is changing. The Vexari are expanding. Conflict is spreading across the stars. We believe that what we have learned here could help prevent a catastrophe. Alina understood now why the Vexari had abandoned this system. The keepers must have driven them away, using abilities that human technology could not match. This was not just a colony, it was a sanctuary. And Marcus Foster was offering to share its secrets with the Federation. What do you want from us? Alina asked. We want you to bring our message to your leaders, Marcus said. We want to open negotiations for a formal alliance between the humans of Kepler 442b and the Federation. We have technologies and knowledge that could change the course of human history. But we will only share them if we are treated as equals, not as subjects to be studied or resources to be exploited. He stood slowly, his old bones creaking with the effort. And there is something else, something that you need to see for yourself. Thomas Chen is still alive, Commander. He is over 80 years old now, but the partnership with the Keepers has extended his life far beyond normal human limits. He is the one who truly leads this community. He is the one who sent the beacon signal, and he wants to meet you. Alina rose to her feet, her mind racing with possibilities. She had come to this world expecting to find ruins and tragedy. Instead, she had found hope. Take me to him, she said. The path to Thomas Chen led through the heart of the city and beyond, into a valley that glowed with soft bioluminescent light. Alina walked beside Marcus Foster, her team following close behind. The colonists they passed watched with quiet curiosity, their eyes following the strangers from Earth with interest rather than fear. As they walked, Marcus explained more about the society that had developed on Kepler 442b. The population had grown from the original 12,000 colonists to nearly 50,000, spread across several settlements on the planet's largest continent. They had developed new technologies by combining human engineering with the organic capabilities of the Keepers. They had created a form of government that blended democracy with the collective decision-making of the alien species. It was not easy, Marcus admitted. There were conflicts and disagreements, especially in the early years. Not everyone was comfortable with the changes we were undergoing. Some people could not accept the partnership with the Keepers. They formed their own communities, separate from the collective. We let them go. We believe in choice. Elena nodded, respecting the honesty of his words. What happened to those communities? Some of them eventually returned to us. Others maintain their independence to this day. We trade with them, cooperate with them, but we do not force them to join the collective. That would go against everything we believe. The valley opened up before them, revealing a sight that took Elena's breath away. A vast crystalline structure rose from the center of the valley, its surfaces catching the bioluminescent light and reflecting it in patterns of incredible complexity. It was not a building in the conventional sense. It seemed almost organic, as if it had grown from the earth rather than being constructed. "This is the heart," Marcus said, his voice filled with reverence. "It is where the Keepers gather to share their deepest thoughts. It is also where Thomas Chen has made his home for the past 40 years. They approached the structure along a path that wound through gardens of alien plants. Elena noticed that the vegetation here was different from what she had seen elsewhere on the planet. The plants seemed to respond to their presence, leaves turning toward them as they passed, flowers opening to release clouds of luminescent pollen. A group of Keepers emerged from the shadows as they approached the heart. Elena saw them clearly for the first time, not as holographic images but as living beings. They were even more impressive in person, their bodies flowing with grace and power, their bioluminescent patterns pulsing in rhythms that seemed almost musical. One of the Keepers approached Elena directly, its form shifting and reshaping as it moved. She felt a gentle pressure at the edge of her consciousness, not intrusive but curious. A voice seemed to whisper in her mind, though no sound reached her ears. "Welcome, traveler from the stars. We have waited long for this meeting." Elena felt no fear, only wonder. "Thank you for receiving us," she said aloud. "I come with peaceful intentions." "We know your heart," the voice replied. "We see the goodness within you. Come, Thomas awaits." The Keeper turned and led them into the heart. The interior was even more stunning than the exterior, a vast space filled with light and color, and a sense of profound peace. Elena felt as if she had entered a cathedral, a place where something sacred was happening just beyond the edge of perception. Thomas Chen sat at the center of the space, surrounded by Keepers who seemed to be in deep communion with him. He was an old man, as Marcus had said, with white hair and deeply lined features. But his eyes were young, filled with a vitality that belied his advanced age. He rose as Elena approached, moving with surprising grace for someone so elderly. He studied her for a long moment, his gaze penetrating and assessing. "Commander Vasquez," he said finally, "I have seen you in my visions. The Keepers showed me your face months ago, long before you received our signal. They told me that you would be the one to come." Elena felt a chill run through her. "You knew I was coming." The Keepers perceive time differently than we do. They can see patterns in the flow of events, possibilities that branch and merge like streams of water. They knew that someone would answer our call, and they sensed that it would be you. He gestured to a cushion on the floor beside him. "Please sit. We have much to discuss, and I'm afraid that time is short." Elena settled onto the cushion, her curiosity overwhelming her caution. "Why is time short? What is happening?" Thomas Chen's expression grew serious. "The Vexari are not the only threat facing the galaxy. The Keepers have sensed something else, something far more dangerous. A force is moving through the darkness between stars, consuming everything in its path. The Keepers call it the Hunger. It is older than their species, older than life itself on this world, and it is coming." He reached out and took Elena's hand, and suddenly she was somewhere else. She floated in the void of space, looking down at the galaxy spread out below her like a river of light. She saw ships and planets and civilizations rising and falling across eons, and she saw the darkness. It was a shadow that moved between the stars, vast and terrible, swallowing everything it touched. Whole systems disappeared as she watched, their light extinguished forever. The shadow was growing, spreading, approaching. The vision ended, and Alina found herself back in the heart, gasping for breath. Thomas Chen still held her hand, his grip firm and reassuring. "That is what the keepers have shown me," he said quietly. "That is why I activated the beacon. The Federation must know what is coming. Humanity must prepare." Alina struggled to process what she had seen. "How long do we have?" "Decades, perhaps. A century at most. The hunger moves slowly, but it never stops. And when it arrives in this region of space, nothing will be able to stand against it, unless we find a way to fight it." He released her hand and sat back, exhaustion visible on his features. The keepers believe that the key to defeating the hunger lies in unity. The different species of the galaxy must set aside their conflicts and work together. Humans, Vexari, and all the other intelligent races must combine their knowledge and resources. Otherwise, the hunger will consume us all, one by one. Alina understood now why she had been called here. This was not just about rescuing a lost colony or establishing an alliance. This was about saving the galaxy itself. "What do you need me to do?" she asked. Thomas Chen smiled, and for a moment Alina saw the young man he had once been, brave and idealistic, willing to take a chance on something impossible. "I need you to be my voice," he said. "I am too old to travel to Earth and the Keepers cannot leave this world, but you can carry our message to the Federation Council. You can tell them what you have seen and learned here. You can convince them to listen." He reached into his robe and pulled out a small crystal, glowing with inner light. "This contains everything: the history of our partnership with the Keepers, the knowledge we have gathered over 47 years, and the visions of the hunger. Show this to your leaders. Let them see what we have seen, and then convince them to act." Alina took the crystal carefully, feeling its warmth against her palm. The weight of responsibility settled on her shoulders, heavy but not unbearable. She had come to this world as a military officer on a rescue mission. She was leaving as something else entirely. She was becoming a messenger, a bridge between worlds, a hope for the future. "I will do everything in my power," she promised. Thomas Chen nodded, satisfaction evident in his eyes. "I know you will. The Keepers chose well when they saw you in their visions. You are exactly the leader that humanity needs right now." Alina spent 3 more days on Kepler 442b, learning as much as she could about the partnership between humans and Keepers. She walked through the city and spoke with colonists who had been born on this world and had never known Earth. She witnessed ceremonies where humans and Keepers shared thoughts and memories in communion. She saw technology that combined the best of both species, devices that seemed almost magical in their capabilities. And she saw the hope that burned in the eyes of everyone she met. These people had built something extraordinary. They had proven that different species could live and work together, not as conquerors and conquered, but as true partners. If that lesson could be extended to the rest of the galaxy, perhaps the hunger could be defeated after all. When the time came to leave, Alina gathered her team at the Prometheus. The colonists had come to see them off, thousands of people lining the path to the ship. Thomas Chen was there, supported by Marcus Foster and surrounded by Keepers whose bioluminescent patterns seemed to pulse with emotion. "You carry the future with you, Commander," Thomas said as Alina prepared to board her ship. "Do not lose faith, no matter how dark things may seem. Humanity has always found a way to survive, to adapt, to overcome. That is our greatest strength." Alina clasped his hand one final time. "I will not fail you." The Prometheus rose into the sky, leaving Kepler 442b behind. Alina watched the planet shrink in the viewscreen, the city lights fading into the darkness of space. She clutched the crystal that Thomas had given her, feeling its warmth and the weight of the knowledge it contained. The journey home was uneventful, but Alina spent every moment preparing. She reviewed her notes, organized her evidence, and practiced the speech she would give to the Federation Council. She knew that many of them would not believe her. They would think she had been deceived or manipulated. They would resist the changes that she was proposing. But she also knew that she had to try. When the Prometheus arrived at Earth, Alina was immediately summoned to the council chamber. The admirals and counselors were waiting, their faces a mixture of curiosity and skepticism. Admiral Chen was there, his arms crossed and his expression doubtful. Alina stood before them and began to speak. She told them about the beacon and the journey to Kepler 442b. She described the colony that had not failed but had evolved. She explained the partnership with the keepers and the knowledge that had been shared. And then she showed them the crystal. The visions that had been recorded within it played across the holographic display, showing the council everything that Alina had seen. The keepers in their crystalline heart, Thomas Chen and his message of unity, and the hunger, the shadow that was coming to consume them all. When the presentation ended, the chamber was silent. Admiral Chen stared at the display, his skepticism replaced by something that looked almost like fear. Councilwoman Akafer had tears in her eyes. "This changes everything," Admiral Chen said finally. "If what you have shown us is true, then we need to prepare. We need to reach out to the Vexari and every other species we know. We need to build an alliance unlike anything the galaxy has ever seen." Alina nodded, hope blooming in her chest. "That is exactly what Thomas Chen asked us to do, and I believe we can do it. If we work together, if we set aside our differences and focus on the threat that faces us all, we can survive. We can protect everything that we hold dear." She looked around the chamber, meeting each person's eyes in turn. "The colonists of Kepler 442b showed us what is possible. They proved that cooperation is stronger than conflict, that wisdom can turn chaos into order. Now it is our turn to carry that lesson forward." The young leader reclaimed the lost colony, and in doing so, he showed us a path to salvation. Will we have the courage to follow it? The vote was unanimous. The Federation would reach out to the keepers and begin building the alliance that humanity needed to survive. Commander Alina Vasquez was appointed as the chief liaison between Earth and Kepler 442b, a role that she would hold for the rest of her life. In the years that followed, she watched as the galaxy transformed. Old enemies became allies. Ancient conflicts were resolved. Species that had never communicated learned to share thoughts and work together. And when the hunger finally came, decades later, they were ready. The battle was long and terrible, but humanity and its allies emerged victorious. The shadow was pushed back, driven into the void where it could no longer threaten the living. Billions had worked together to achieve what none could have accomplished alone. And at the center of it all, remembered always, was the story of a lost colony that had found a new way to live. The young leader who had transformed chaos into order. The wisdom that had shown the galaxy what it could become. Humanity had proven once again that it would not go quietly into the night. Given a challenge, humans would rise to meet it. Given an impossible situation, they would find a way through. Given darkness, they would kindle a light that could never be extinguished. That was the legacy of Kepler 442b. That was the gift that Thomas Chen had given to the stars. And it was only the beginning.